I want you to picture a 19th century ballroom dance. Like, really put yourself in that room for a second. You are probably seeing, rows of people in impossibly tight corsets and heavy wool coats.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone looking incredibly stiff.
Right. You're picturing rigid bows, polite curtsies, and just absolute crushing boredom. It all feels very formal, very slow, and honestly, incredibly safe.
Like a museum exhibit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I want you to take that image and completely shatter it. What if I told you that one specific peasant dance from 1830 was actually like a high-speed biomechanical engine?
Yeah, it's wild to think about.
And that it's currently being used as a proven medical tool against brain aging. And maybe most surprisingly, that it is the hidden inspiration behind 2026's biggest fashion trend right now.
I mean, it sounds impossible when you stack it all up like that, but the reality of those ballrooms was a lot closer to, well, a high-intensity athletic event than a polite social gathering. The underlying mechanics of what those dancers were doing are absolutely staggering.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because we have a piece of research sitting in front of us today that fundamentally changes how I view human movement.
It's a fantastic paper.
Yeah, it's a paper by Christophe Delong at Kinexa Formation titled La Polka, analyse biomécanique, neurophysiologique et fonctionnelle. And just to be clear with you listening, we are not here to memorize dance steps today.
Definitely not.
We are going on a deep dive into the human machine. The mission here is to figure out how a bouncing rhythm from a rural village hijacked human biology so effectively that it's still, echoing in our hospitals and our closets 2 centuries later.
Right, and to understand how it does all that, we really have to start with the raw physics. You cannot understand the polka without understanding its structural rhythm.
Okay, so break that down for us.
Well, it operates on a strict 2/4 binary structure. You can hear it in your head as a relentless boom-chak, boom-chak. And the tempo is crucial here. They are usually running this at a brisk 100 to 120 beats per minute.
Which, if you have ever been on a treadmill, is practically a sprint. Moving around a crowded room at that pace is a serious cardiovascular demand.
It is incredibly demanding, but to truly grasp why this specific rhythm was such a biological shock to the system, you have to look at what the wealthy elites were dancing before this came along.
The waltz, right?
Exactly. The dominant dance of the era was the waltz, and the waltz uses a 3/4 time signature. It is designed to be smooth and gliding.
Very elegant.
Right. The entire aesthetic goal is to make it look like the dancers are floating effortlessly across the floor. The polka comes along and completely disrupts that elegance. It introduces a mechanical feature called an anacrusis.
Wait, I need to stop you there because anacrusis is one of those terms that sounds like a tropical disease. What exactly is happening physically?
Fair enough. In musical and physical terms, an anacrusis is just a tiny, almost imperceptible hop. It happens just a fraction of a second before the first actual beat of the measure.
Okay.
And that one little pre-hop changes everything about how the human body interacts with gravity.
Wait, I want to make sure I'm visualizing this correctly. Is this like stretching a rubber band right before you let it snap? Like they're using that tiny hop to prime their legs?
That is a perfect way to look at it. Christophe Delong's paper refers to this as the short stretch shortening cycle, or SSC. When the dancers perform that tiny pre-hop, they land and instantly flex their ankles, their knees, and their hips.
Storing the energy.
Yes, they are taking the kinetic energy from that small downward motion and storing it as elastic energy right in their Achilles tendons.
So they're essentially turning their Achilles tendons into loaded biological pogo sticks.
Yeah.
They're recycling the energy of the landing instead of just using raw muscle power.
What's fascinating here is that they have to. If you relied entirely on raw concentric muscle power, just squeezing your calves and your quads to jump up and down 120 times a minute, you would hit total muscle failure in 60 seconds.
You'd just collapse.
Exactly. But by utilizing that stretch shortening cycle, the body optimizes the movement to reduce the pure muscular cost. The elastic energy stored in the tendon powers the next explosive movement. Biomechanists call it the triple extension.
Triple extension.
Yeah, it's the simultaneous extension of the ankle, the knee, and the hip. It provides maximum vertical thrust with minimum wasted energy.
It is brilliant engineering. But here is where I start to struggle with the physics of this whole scenario. They aren't just bouncing in place like they're jumping rope. They are moving forward and they are spinning.
Spinning very fast.
Right. You have 2 human bodies locked together, rotating 360 degrees every 2 steps while traveling counterclockwise around a room. If I am bouncing like a pogo stick while spinning like a top, wouldn't the centrifugal force just rip my partner and me apart? We'd be thrown into the orchestra pit.
That is the exact problem the human body has to solve in real time. When two masses rotate around a shared central axis, physics dictates that they want to fly apart.
So how do they stay together?
To prevent that, the dancers have to build what the research calls a scapular frame.
I found this concept so fascinating. Because from the waist down, they are a bouncing engine, but from the waist up, they're doing something completely different.
Totally different. From the waist up, they are a rigid steering wheel. They maintain a constant isometric contraction of their upper body muscles.
Just locked in.
Exactly. The deltoids, which are your shoulder muscles, and the trapezius in your upper back are totally engaged. The man places his right hand firmly on the woman's shoulder blade, creating this solid mechanical interface.
So they're building a structural frame out of their own tension.
Yes. The force of their legs pushing off the floor is transmitted up through their core and directed straight through this rigid upper body frame. It is how one partner instantly communicates a change in direction to the other.
Because you can't exactly chat.
Right. There is no time to speak at 120 beats per minute. The physics of the frame do the talking.
Okay, the biomechanics are brilliant for saving muscular energy and staying attached to your partner. But I have a glaring question. If I try spinning around in my office chair for 30 seconds, I cannot walk in a straight line. And I usually feel quite sick.
Most people do.
So these dancers are bouncing and spinning continuously. Why aren't they throwing up all over the ballroom? I mean, how does the brain process that level of chaotic physics?
It puts an unimaginable strain on the vestibular system. If you think about your inner ear, you have these semicircular canals filled with fluid. They act as your body's internal gyroscope, detecting angular acceleration.
Like tracking your head movements.
Yeah, imagine spinning a cup of water. The fluid moves and tells your brain you are turning. But in the polka, you aren't just spinning smoothly. You are bouncing, you are accelerating, and you are dodging other people.
Sounds like sensory overload.
It is. Your brain is suddenly receiving a massive, conflicting influx of signals about where up actually is.
So how does the brain not just, blue screen and crash?
It relies heavily on two powerful, ancient neurological reflexes. The first is the vestibulo-ocular reflex. Think of this like the internal Steadicam feature on a high-end smartphone camera.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it constantly and rapidly microadjusts your eye muscles in the opposite direction of your head movement, so your vision doesn't just blur into a smeared mess of colors.
That makes perfect sense for the eyes. But what about the rest of the body? How do they stay upright?
That is handled by the vestibulospinal reflex. It totally bypasses conscious thought and constantly fires microadjustments down your spinal cord to your leg muscles.
So it's automatic.
Completely. It is making thousands of split-second corrections to your posture so you don't fall over. Your brain is working absolute overtime just to maintain your vertical axis.
I'm starting to see why DeLong's paper refers to this as a double cognitive task.
Yeah.
The dancer is surviving this intense physical spin, but they are also mapping the room.
Right. They're using spatial navigation via the hippocampus to figure out where they are,
while simultaneously handling intense social interaction. I mean, they are reading their partner's micro movements through that scapular frame and avoiding high-speed collisions with 20 other couples.
And managing all of that requires immense interhemispheric communication. You are alternating left foot, right foot at a blistering speed.
So the whole brain is lighting up.
Exactly. This means your corpus callosum, the thick bridge of nerve fibers connecting the left and right sides of your brain, is firing back and forth frantically. Meanwhile, your basal ganglia are desperately trying to automate the sequence.
Meaning the brain is trying to move the complex pattern out of active thinking and into procedural memory. Like riding a bike.
Yes, the goal is to inhabit the movement unconsciously. That way, the dancer can free up mental bandwidth to focus on navigating the room and actually engaging with their partner.
Wait, I have to push back on something here, though. The paper suggests this is a secret weapon against cognitive decline. I'm struggling to see how a repetitive dance step is better for the brain than, say, sitting quietly and doing a complex crossword puzzle.
It's a fair question.
Doesn't muscle memory just take over eventually and the brain shuts off?
It is a common assumption, but the neurophysiology tells a completely different story. Sitting quietly and doing a crossword puzzle only activates very specific, isolated neural pathways.
I see.
The double cognitive task of the Polka complex motor tracking, layered over real-time spatial and social navigation forces, massive, widespread activation across the brain, particularly in the prefrontal cortex.
Which is huge for executive function.
Exactly. It demands intense focus and rapid decision-making in a three-dimensional space. By doing this repeatedly, the dancers generate powerful neuroplasticity. They are literally forcing their brains to build denser, more efficient neural networks to handle the load.
Wow.
So yes, from a neurological standpoint, it is vastly superior to a static mental puzzle for building cognitive reserve.
Okay, now that we know it is essentially a super workout for both the cardiovascular system and the central nervous system, it starts to make sense why human beings became entirely addicted to it. And I do mean addicted. Let's trace the history of this, because it didn't just stay in one village. It spread like a virus.
The origin story is fascinating. It traces back to Bohemia in the modern-day Czech Republic, right around 1830. The strongest historical tradition points to a young peasant girl named Anna Slezak.
Just a normal girl.
Right. The legend goes that she was simply improvising this bouncing binary step to a local folk tune. It was an expression of pure rural joy. A local teacher saw it, wrote down the steps, and from that single moment of improvisation, it just exploded.
It hits the salons of Prague by 1835. Then it travels to Vienna in 1839. And Vienna is a massive turning point because that is where the Strauss family operated.
They were essentially the rock stars of 19th century music.
Seriously. They saw this peasant dance and started composing elite orchestral polkas for the high society balls. But then, in 1844, it hits Paris. And the source material uses the actual term polka mania.
It transcended being just a dance in Paris. It became a cultural obsession that broke through all social class barriers.
Why did it catch on so fast there?
Part of the reason it spread so fast was its accessibility. The classical dances of the era, like the minuet, required years of formal training. The base steps of the polka were relatively simple to pick up. Anyone can learn the basic bounce.
And people went crazy for it.
They did. It became so popular that they started naming food after it. You could go into a Parisian cafe and order a dish a la polka. They even named clothing items after it.
And it didn't stop in Europe. The massive waves of 19th century migration carried it across the Atlantic. It lands in the American Midwest with German, Polish, and Czech immigrants.
It really took root there.
It becomes so deeply ingrained in the culture there that it is actually the official state dance of Wisconsin. But it also travels south, deep into Mexico.
The impact in Mexico was profound. The polka rhythm became the absolute backbone of norteña and Tejano music. But central to this global spread, whether you are looking at a tavern in Wisconsin or a festival in Mexico, is one specific technological innovation.
The accordion.
Yes. Delong points out something fascinating about the accordion in the research. It wasn't just chosen because people liked the sound of it. It was a strategic acoustic weapon.
How so?
Think about the environment of a 19th century dance hall. You have a crowded, noisy room with wooden floors. Hundreds of people are stomping, laughing, and shouting. If you put a delicate string quartet in the corner of that room, the sound would be swallowed whole.
You wouldn't hear a thing.
Right. But the accordion utilizes bellows. It physically pushes large volumes of air violently through reeds to create sharp percussive accents. Those sharp bursts of sound perfectly cut through the ambient noise of a crowded room.
So it kept everyone on beat.
Exactly. It provided a relentless, crystal-clear metronome that kept every single dancer jumping in perfect synchronization.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. You suddenly have hundreds of people doing this high-speed, bouncing, rotating dance in enclosed, crowded spaces. This wasn't the slow waltz anymore. People were practically weaponizing themselves. Didn't it become dangerous?
It became incredibly dangerous. The dance masters of the era actually had to step in and publish manuals to standardize the movements. They were forced to lay down strict traffic rules for the ballroom.
Like literal lanes?
Essentially, yes. They had to refine the posture, shrink the vertical height of the jump, and establish a uniform counterclockwise flow. They basically had to tame the raw physics of this peasant dance so people wouldn't suffer high-speed collisions and serious injuries.
That is wild.
They engineered a raw expression of joy into a sustainable social system.
But the underlying biomechanics, that triple extension, that massive cognitive load, they survived the standardization. Which brings us to a mind-bending application today. Because the polka isn't just a relic of the past, or something you only see at historical reenactments. Medical professionals are using these exact biomechanical properties right now as a therapy tool.
We are seeing it utilized specifically in the realm of geriatric therapy. Functional medicine specialists have taken this 1830s dance and reverse engineered it for elderly populations.
Obviously, they aren't having 90-year-olds sprinting around a room at 120 beats per minute.
No, doing that would cause massive cardiovascular events. The very first adaptation they make is dropping the tempo down to a much safer 80 to 90 beats per minute.
Which is a lot more manageable.
It is. This reduces the strain on the heart while still maintaining the steady binary rhythm that the brain loves.
And they modify the explosive impact too, right? The paper notes that they strip out the actual jump and replace it with a gentle calf raise.
Yes, it becomes a subtle rebound. The heels lift, but the toes never leave the floor.
Oh, so it protects the joints.
Precisely. This protects the spine from compression and saves the knee joints, but it still utilizes that vital stretch-shortening cycle in the Achilles tendon. They also limit the fast turns to prevent severe vertigo.
Wow, so it's heavily modified but retains the core benefits.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, think about the broader implications of this for a moment. Think about an older relative or a grandparent. The fear of a fatal fall is massive. We are taking a 200-year-old party dance and prescribing it to build cognitive and physical reserves to keep them safe.
That's amazing.
The constant lateral movements, the shifting of weight from side to side, that builds dynamic balance. And dynamic balance is the #1 defense against falls in older populations.
And the micro impacts of that bouncing rhythm do something highly specific to the muscles and the bones, don't they? It's not just about balance.
It acts on a cellular level. Those gentle, rhythmic impacts stimulate the fast-twitch muscle fibers. These are the fibers responsible for explosive movement, the ones that fire instantly to catch you if you trip on a rug.
And those are the first to go as we get older, right?
Yeah, they are typically the very first muscle fibers to atrophy as we age, which is a debilitating condition known as sarcopenia. The polka bounce directly combats this.
Incredible. And what about the bones?
Furthermore, the mild, repetitive mechanical stress on the skeleton stimulates a process called osteogenesis. This is the body's method of creating new bone tissue in response to stress, which effectively fights off osteoporosis.
So it's a full body workout.
You add in the cognitive load of remembering the steps and moving with a partner, and you have a total body therapeutic intervention disguised entirely as fun.
It is the ultimate preventative medicine hiding in plain sight. But the influence of this rhythm does not stop at the clinic door. We've looked at the 19th century history, and we've explored the present medical applications. But the rhythm of the polka is actually dictating the future, specifically right now on the spring-summer 2026 fashion runways.
It is one of the most fascinating sociological leaps in the entire paper. We are witnessing a massive, dominant return of the polka dot pattern across global fashion houses.
And the research is very specific about the materials being used. We aren't just talking about printed cotton here. They're using specific colors like electronic blue and chlorophyll green and printing these dots onto bioreactive smart fibers.
They are calling this trend techno-craftsmanship.
Right. But I need you to connect the dots for me, literally. How does a geometric circle on a bioreactive dress connect to the physical dance we just spent 10 minutes analyzing?
The connection is entirely structural and historical. When the dance first swept the world during the 19th century polkamania, textile makers desperately wanted to visually capture its essence. Oh, I see.
The visual, mathematical, perfectly even spacing of the dots on fabric was originally designed as a direct visual metaphor for the binary, staccato, equally spaced rhythm of the dance. The physical pattern you see with your eyes actually is the musical rhythm translated into space.
The bone track translated into visual geometry. That is so cool. But why 2026? Why is this specific ancient mathematical pattern exploding on smart fibers right now?
It comes down to macro-sociological cycles. Historically, trends often operate on an 80-year cycle. If we look back exactly 80 years from 2026, we hit 1946.
Post-World War II.
Exactly. That was the immediate post-World War II era. It was a time characterized by a desperate societal need for joy, reconstruction, and a boom in vitality. The polka and its associated aesthetic was a symbol of that resilient, bouncing joy.
So it's repeating.
We are hitting the direct echo of that cycle now. But more importantly, the resurgence is a psychological reaction to our current environment. Right, because we are living in an era completely saturated by artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and immaterial digital spaces. Everything feels formless right now.
And in a world that feels increasingly chaotic, shapeless, and driven by invisible algorithms we cannot see or touch, human beings have a deep psychological craving for biological, physical reality.
We want something real.
Yes. The polka dot represents absolute mathematical stability. It is predictable. You always know exactly where the next dot is going to be.
So what does this all mean for us navigating this digital landscape?
This raises a vital question about how we use physical patterns to ground ourselves. When our technological environment feels overwhelming, a simple, perfectly spaced geometric dot acting on a bioreactive fiber that changes with our body heat, well, it acts as a visual anchor.
A visual anchor.
The dot is a rebellion against the digital blur. It is a bold statement of physical presence.
I love that idea of a visual anchor. It pulls everything from this deep dive together perfectly. The polka isn't just a dance. It is a masterclass in what Delong calls effective minimalism.
Absolutely.
It is a simple, relentless 2/4 beat that secretly tricks the human body into triggering triple extensions. It forces the brain to build neuroplasticity through complex dual tasking. It physically connects human beings in a shared space, acting as a social regulator. And it inspires an enduring mathematical design that we literally wear as armor against digital chaos.
It is an incredible demonstration of how a piece of culture survives across centuries. It doesn't survive because it is complicated. It survives because its underlying architecture is perfectly mapped to human biology.
Which leaves us with a final thought to ponder today. If a simple bouncing peasant rhythm from a village in 1830 can embed itself so deeply into our muscle fibers, wire itself into our prefrontal cortex, and re-emerge in our 2026 fashion to help us fight off the chaos of the virtual world, well, what other hidden ancient biological rhythms are secretly running your modern life right now without you even realizing it? Think back to that stiff, polite 19th century ballroom you pictured at the start of this deep dive. It wasn't stiff at all. Beneath the surface, it was a dynamic, bouncing engine of human survival. And maybe, so are we.